Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, Grade 1 Stakes action on tap at Santa Anita on Saturday. It's the Boulder Mile for fillies and mares going 2 turns. $500,000 is the purse. Let's take a look at this field. It's a quality field. Bob Baffert's very well represented. He trains the number 4 Midnight Memories, the number 6 Ganadora, and your morning line favorite, the number 8 Fun to Dream, who's stepping up off 3 consecutive victories, going 7/8 of a mile. But before that, she won at a mile and a 16th. She's knocking on the door to being one of the better older fillies and mares in the country.
Yeah, I agree with that, Dan. We'll see if she can take one more step forward here and sort of throw her hat into the ring there. This is a good field overall. I don't think there are any stars in here, at least to this point. We'll see if Fun to Dream can eventually get there. But it just feels really well matched. It feels like a couple of different horses could really be effective in this race. You might get a price on somebody who could actually be a very strong contender. And here, it's a really fun race.
Several of these horses are versatile and pace adaptable. We'll throw up the Timeform US pace projector to see how they feel it'll play out. I agree with them that the number 6 Ganadora is going to be the speed in this race. And this horse had to work pretty hard last time out in the La Cañada. Perhaps if she's able to get to the lead and back things down, she can make things somewhat interesting at a generous price.
It'll be interesting to see what this pace looks like. I don't know that it's going to be fast, Dan. I didn't necessarily think it was going to be slow either. I'd be surprised if somebody just sort of got loose in here and walked up front in this race. I just sort of felt like it would be a fairly run race, and that sort of opens it up to a lot of different contenders.
The number 1 in here is Kirstenbosch, a filly that's slowly improving for trainer John Sadler. She won last time out, stretching out in distance to a mile and a 16th in the aforementioned La Cañada. And as we take a look at the stretch drive, Ganadora was on the lead in here. She had to work hard to get to the lead on the first turn, then faced pressure from this horse to her outside all the way through the turn into the stretch. And Kirstenbosch might have taken prime advantage over a game Ganadora.
Yeah, I won't argue with that viewing of this race too much, Dan. I still kind of feel like Kirstenbosch won this race fair and square. It's not like she came from a million out of it, as Ganadora took a little pressure. She sat right on that horse's back around to the top of the stretch, switched out, and then came with a good run and closed her down on the wire. I thought it was another good performance for her. I remain a fan of hers, Dan. I think she's still underrated, and she's going to be an even better price this time as they step her up in class. I don't know. I like her. I'm going to use her.
And she's another filly that's versatile, that seemingly learned how to relax a little bit better as she's gotten older. She was kind of a speed horse earlier in her career. And while she could go back to that, I think that she's relaxed a lot better. Still a good trip, breaking from the inside post. Pauline's Pearl's a likable mare trained by Steve Asmussen. She has now won 2 consecutive editions of the Houston Ladies Classic. Let's watch that race. Now, this is her seasonal debut, going a mile and a 16th over a muddy track. It's her first race off of a lengthy layoff. I thought the trip was okay and that she was able to kind of relax in mid-pack, but she had to go outside and she had to earn it, grinding down some okay horses.
Yeah, an okay field. I think this is a tougher field, but it's not like she's stepping, way up in class. And at the end of the day, Dan, considering how long she was away, she wins this race pretty comfortably at the end. It was a good performance, another good performance from her. That's kind of what you expect. There are very few underrated races on her card. She just sort of shows up and runs well every single time. I'm interested that they're shipping her out here. I'll also be interested, though, to see what kind of price she is, because I don't think she holds any kind of edge on these horses.
She did win a Grade 1 last year. She won the La Troyenne over the talented She Dares the Devil. I'm assuming she's here because Asmussen has the very talented Clairiere and the Azeri, and he doesn't want to run Pauline's Pearl against her. This might be a little bit of an easier spot and an opportunity to grab another Grade 1. The 3 is Awake at Midnight. And if you had enough of Awake at Midnight, Mike, in her last 2 races, she's run her heart out. And she's just gotten beat each and every time by Fun to Dream. Is it safe to say, A, Fun to Dream's just a better horse, B, at this longer distance, you don't want to Wake at Midnight?
Yeah, I kind of feel that's exactly how I feel about her, Dan, actually. I do think maybe it's time to just admit that Fun to Dream's a little bit better than she is. And I just, more than anything else, though, and I really still think it's pretty close between them, I like Awake at Midnight much better going shorter distances. I'm not really a big fan of any of her races when they stretch her out.
What kind of Midnight Memories is going to show up on Saturday? Is it going to be the filly who looked so good winning the Zenyatta 2 starts back? She got a great ride that day. She kind of bobbled and got bumped at the start and was last going into the first turn. And her jockey said, no, 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 when they tried to slow things down. Split horses on the backstretch to take control, and Midnight Memories was on her way. Is she going to be that Midnight Memories on Saturday, or is she going to be the Midnight Memories that didn't run very well on the La Brea? And I'm curious as to your thoughts on the La Brea, because it looked like she was in good position, and I don't know whether she was reacting to the dirt hitting her in the face, but she just stopped running on the backstretch, and all of a sudden the jock was all over.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there either. It was pretty odd though, because it did look like she was going to get a perfect trip, and then she went from in a great spot to not being in a very good spot at all, and then she just couldn't make an impact late in that race. I don't really know what to make of that, Dan. I just kind of want to not hold it against her too much, even though she wasn't a real factor as the favorite, and just sort of judge her off of her other races. And that's where things get really difficult for me, because I'll agree with your take on the Zenyatta Quebec. She did run really well that day. Not that I feel like that was, a great field by any stretch of the imagination. Her other races just don't really do that much for me. I recognize that she's trained by Baffert and she has tons of upside, and she also has speed, by the way. So don't be surprised if she's on the lead early in this race. I'm just not sure how good I think she is.
She is 2 for 2 around 2 turns. And again, that last race was just sort of weird. You can click on your free formulator past performances, click on the short comment when you're playing this card, and you can watch the replay. Amore is up next, and this horse was purchased for $400,000 in November and has so far paid dividends for trainer Brad Cox, a stakes win at the fairgrounds, and then this graded stakes victory in the Bayakoa at Oaklawn Park, where she's sitting off of the pace. The horse on the lead, I thought, got a pretty easy lead, Lovely Ride, and Amore ran her down. Now, you and I have never thought Amore was a world beater. We didn't think so when Todd Pletcher has her, but she's in career form right now for Brad Cox.
There's no denying that. I mean, she certainly improved quite a bit since Cox has taken over for her last 2 starts. She was sort of a mediocre horse when Pletcher had her, and Pletcher had her for several races, and she just wasn't that good, Dan. She's obviously a lot better now than she was then. I liked her win last time. I didn't love it. I didn't think it was, a particularly strong race overall, and she got the job done there. I think this is a way tougher race.
Ganadora, I think, is an interesting pace play. As I mentioned when we were talking about the pace projector, she was a very easy winner of a weak stake at Los Alamitos 3 starts back. They ran her in the La Brea. She was part of, I thought, a fast and contested pace and ended up paying the price going 7/8. I think her speed plays much better in these middle distance races. We saw her last effort. She did win the battle, lost the war. You could also argue if she's that great, she's supposed to win.
Yeah, I would make that argument. But you're right, though. She was on the lead in there. She was taking a little bit of pressure on the end. And she did shake that rival off before Kirstenbosch came and nailed her on the wire. It was a fine performance. If she just runs that race back, is she going to win this grade 1 race? I don't think so. I mean, I think she's going to have to run the best race of her life if she's going to beat this field, but maybe she'll shake loose and take a step forward.
I think one of the keys to this race is to whether the number 7 Desert Dawn is fit and ready to give her a effort in her first start since September, because we know this filly has talent. She was 3rd in the Kentucky Oaks. She won the Santa Anita Oaks. She had some excuses for some of her other races, although I really couldn't find the excuse for her last start last year, where she engaged Midnight Memories at the top of the stretch in the Torrey Pines and was just sort of pushed away.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add to that. She was pretty good as a 3-year-old, and it did sort of feel like, especially leading up to the Kentucky Oaks, she was getting better. She actually ran really well in the Kentucky Oaks, and then only got 3 other starts in after that. But it's that last one that I feel like it makes it hard for me to want her in here if she takes money, just because she didn't really have an excuse in there. Took the race to Midnight Memories, had every chance to win, and wasn't good enough.
But maybe something went physically amiss. She goes out for a fantastic trainer, and she worked 58 the other day, so she's likely going to show some fresh speed, at least positional-wise, off the layoff. Fun to Dream, the horse to beat. She's won her last 4, 3 at 7 furlongs, but 2 turns has been no issue in the past. Here's Fun to Dream winning the Santa Monica over Awake at Midnight. She traveled very sweetly throughout in behind horses. The jock was patient, waited for a seam 3 wide. Awake at Midnight was outside on the backstretch, assumed the lead here, but as we've seen in the stretch of the last 2 runs, Fun to Dreams are better right now.
Yeah, she did get a really good trip in this race, but she just flat overpowers Awake at Midnight late in this race, and she's going away at the end. This is a very strong victory for this filly. We'll see. It's interesting. Now they're going to stretch her back out. Obviously, she's good sprinting, Dan. Grade 1 and 2 wins in her last 2 starts. I still feel like, I think we touched on this talking about the Santa Monica last time. I still think one of the better races she's ever run was the only time they stretched her out around 2 turns last October. She was really good that day, and I'm very interested to see what she does now that Baffert stretches her out again.
Top pick time for the Grade 1 Beholder Mile at Santa Anita on Saturday. Fun to Dream, I think, is the horse to beat. She's my second pick. At these odds, if Awake at Midnight stays around 10-1, considering her consistency and her tactical speed, I do want to give her one chance. She's not that far off Fun to Dream, although the additional distance does worry me. I do agree with you, Mike. I think that Fun to Dream's the horse to beat. And I think you might be on to something with Kirstenbosch as a late-running contender.
Yeah, she's the other horse for me. I feel like it's kind of hard to separate some of the others. More than anything else, that I just kind of want to avoid the 2 shippers. I think those 2 shippers coming in for top trainers, I think they're going to take money in this race. I don't want any part of them. I want the local horses. I prefer Fun to Dream. I'm going to use the 1.
8127 for Mike, 3826 for me. We'll see if Fun to Dream can make it 5 in a row in the Grade 1 Beholder Mile. Good luck.